Well, the things I said yesterday have been demonstrated to be true in ways that I will discuss further in Baltimore, Maryland. We have a number of things to cover today, but Baltimore's top shelf. Now, we know a few things now, folks, as a matter of fact and experience. Number one, having a black president has no effect on what's going on in some of our cities. Zero. Number two, having black mayors, a majority, if not totally black city councils, has no effect on what goes on in many of these cities and communities. Number three, the effort to constantly push the left agenda whenever there's human imperfection, whenever there is whenever there is a problem, whether caused by Mother Nature, whether caused by rioters or whatever it is, it's an opportunity once again to push the left's agenda. And so you can see the crumbling of the civil society. You can see the crumbling of the civil society. It's a sad thing, is it not? These quote-unquote young people are taught day in and day out in our public schools, paid for by you, how terrible America is, how terrible American history is, how everybody's a victim. Women, victim. Minorities, victim. Gays, victim, victim, victim. Everybody's a victim in the greatest country on the face of the earth. Nobody is stopping anybody in this country to make something of themselves. Nobody. Nobody's holding anybody back. We have absolute mobility. We have opportunity, if you wish to make it. We don't have a caste system. And yet, the same bromides, day in and day out, decade after decade, to advance the left's agenda, centralized government. Ferguson, it was all about race. This has nothing to do with race. Nothing. Zero. Zero. And yet Obama does it again. Well, here's some of what he said, because I want to keep it in context. I want us to have complete honesty here. At a press conference today, in part with the Japanese Prime Minister, he says this. Cut one, go.
My understanding is you've got some of the same organizers now going back into these communities to try to clean up in the aftermath of a handful of protesters, a handful of criminals and thugs who tore up the place. What they were doing, what those community leaders and clergy and others were doing, that is a statement. That's the kind of organizing that needs to take place if we're going to tackle this problem, and they deserve credit for it, and we should be lifting them up.
Well, who's not lifting them up? What do you mean we should be lifting them up? Who's not lifting them up? Who's attacking them? Nobody. But their job is much, much harder when they have a president of the United States who says that out of one side of his mouth. As I said yesterday, he would do this. And then says other things out of the other side of his mouth, like this. Cut two, go.
Since Ferguson and the task force that we put together, we have seen too many instances of what appears to be police officers interacting with individuals, primarily African American, often poor, in ways that raise troubling questions. And it comes up, it seems like, once a week now, or once every couple of weeks. And so I think it's pretty understandable why the leaders of civil rights organizations, but more importantly, moms and dads across the country might start saying...
Enough of that. But you see what he's saying. This is happening a lot. It's happening too much, particularly to blacks and particularly in poor areas. Now, last week, I mentioned to you that police kill more whites than blacks. I mentioned to you, and this is a study, that minority deaths generate more outrage. Now, if police kill more whites than blacks, then a white, I hate talking like this. I really do, lady. It sounds like South Africa 40 years ago with apartheid and all, but unfortunately, this is the way the president speaks. This is the way the media speak. I detest it. I hate it. We're Americans. But I got to get down where they are to confront them and address them. So in that respect, I'm sorry, but I hope you understand the circumstances, okay? I really hate to see my country turn into this. I hate to see my country, blacks, whites, Latino. It is disgusting. It is horrific. And yet here we are. Here we are. And so now I have to talk about statistics. How police officers kill more whites than blacks. And by the way, in many cases, if not most cases, they deserve killed. It's a shootout. It's a robbery. It's an extremely dangerous situation. So I'm not passing judgment on that. I'm passing judgment on what Obama said. When's the first time this man spoke out about a white kid being shot? When's the first time he spoke out about a white kid being abused? He's never done it. And he never will. And he never will. And here, primarily African Americans, often poor, Nobel Prize, let's see here. Let me get to the heart of this story. I talked about it the other day. Obama doesn't talk about that white kid who was shot, who was naked, shot by a black officer. Gilbert Collar, 18-year-old white student, University of South Alabama, was on drugs, was unarmed, was naked, shot and killed by a black officer. And the black officer was cleared. So be it. I don't know all the details. But Obama doesn't talk about that, and there's no rioting in Alabama. Again, I'm not making excuses. I don't know the facts. I'm not passing judgment. I am talking about how the President of the United States responds to this, how the national media respond to this, and how communities respond to this. This isn't about poverty. This isn't about how many young men are in prison. This is about the breakdown of the family. This is about the breakdown of people who don't follow their faith anymore. This is about big government substituting itself over and over and over again for what used to be family values. Now, we'll link to this story so you can read all the nuances and all the exceptions and all the rest as we did last week. There is no excuse for this rioting. None whatsoever. And I watch this and I think to myself, it was just, 6 years ago when the Tea Party movement came to be. I know I'm part of the Tea Party movement. I was early on with Liberty and Tyranny, very active, and I still am. And we had the media and politicians trying to look anywhere for violence. They couldn't find any. Trying to look anywhere for racial epithets. They couldn't. The LaRouches came and others, but the Tea Party didn't do that. Anything. Teabaggers attacking law-abiding American citizens of all races who are protesting peacefully, who are not violent in any respect. They didn't burn anything. They didn't attack anybody. They didn't go after the police officers. And you were mocked and mocked and mocked over and over and over again. Because conservatives don't riot, whatever color. They don't. We don't. I think part of the biggest problem here is the indoctrination of young people. I think part of the biggest problem here also is the rhetoric and the welfare state. And I'm not just talking about black people, white people too. It's the notion that somebody owes you something. If somebody has something, they stole it. Go ahead, burn their building. Go ahead, steal from them. They're not successful on their own. You made them successful. When they didn't make them successful, they are successful on their own. It's an entire mentality that if you have something, you stole it so somebody can take it back from you. It's an entire mentality of victimhood and the destruction of our culture. Now, here's Obama cut 3. Go.
Now, the challenge for us as the federal government is that we don't run these police forces. I can't federalize.
Let's stop right there. Now, I'm the one who started last summer saying they're trying to nationalize these local police forces. Now, obviously, that's hit home because that's what they're doing. Now he's defensive about it. We can't federalize these police forces. That's what they're doing through the back door. That's exactly what they're doing. Go ahead.
The country and force them to retrain. But what I can do is to start working with them collaboratively.
Let's stop here. We still don't know what happened in this case. We have no idea what happened in this case. But apparently Obama does. But let's play along just for a moment. Let us assume that a couple of cops took that guy in the back and beat the crap out of him. That's not the entire Baltimore police force. I saw the Baltimore police force. So did you on TV. Restrained, being injured, having rocks thrown at them. If I were the police commissioner and mayor, it would have turned out a little differently. But what do you mean you're going to train the Baltimore police force? What do you mean you're going to train the NYPD? From a community organizer. From a man who has Sharpton in his office repeatedly. From a man who tolerates the Islamo-Nazis in the Middle East. They're going to retrain the police officers? Incredible to me. Cut 4, go.
We can't just leave this to the police. I think there are police departments that have to do some soul searching.
Stop. What does that mean? Police department. You see, this is what I was saying yesterday, and this was predictable, and here he is today out of one side of his mouth. Talks about thugs and violence. Out of the other, one excuse after another. Too much police brutality against minorities. These police forces have to do some soul searching. The hell runs this police force in Baltimore? It's a black police chief. Who runs that city in Baltimore? It's a black mayor. Who the hell runs the city council in Baltimore? It's a black city council. What is he talking about? Soul searching. No, Mr. President, the people who have to do the soul searching are the people who are doing the violence. That's who need to do the soul searching. That's what needs to be the focus of your comments. Not a throwaway line for 15 seconds when you go on for 10 minutes against everybody else. Everybody but the perpetrators, right? Just not enough money in the community? Not enough taxes? Not enough federal subsidies? Is that it? No, that's not it. Every great philosopher during the Enlightenment will tell you the same thing. When a people lose their virtue, they lose their country. When a people lose their virtue, they lose their country. This isn't about federal subsidies, federal programs. This isn't about law enforcement, soul searching. You know, Mr. President, maybe this happens a lot. Maybe this happens a lot. Maybe you can tell us how often. But I'll tell you what does happen a lot, what's not reported, are the untold number of cases where police officers help people, save people, protect people, and prevent this kind of hooliganism, rioting, action that we've seen in Baltimore. You're on the wrong side of this issue. Mr. President, as you always are. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.